What a movie, huh? Now, before I start yapping on all the symbolism in this movie, I'd like to state that I loved it. I've seen some hate going around mainly from larger reviewing orgs, but even a lot of audience reviews seem to criticize the same thing, the pacing. Keep in mind, this isn't a review, so I'll try not to make it one, but despite the at times rough audio mixing of the movie, and unnecessary dialogue, and overusage of the word fuck, and a whole bunch of other criticisms you could totally make that are super fair, I mean, it's his first movie, it's understandable. The pacing and writing are certainly not what I would criticize. In fact, I'd say they are the core of why I enjoyed this movie so much, and that's not even mentioning the cinematography and special effects, which were all fantastically done. Okay, I am just reviewing at this point. The essence of the world building begins with the Quiet Rapture. At some point in one of Simon's flashbacks, we're told the story of how the planets and the stars all disappeared without a trace. And as the camera pans to a still star-filled sky, one of the young disciples makes a fair observation. The stars are still there. The movie never clears this up. Mark and the team are trusting you here to understand the logistics behind this. But, for those who don't know, light has a given speed. It is also what allows us to see. What this means for us is that the further a given star is, the older the light from that star we're seeing is. Despite the star having disappeared, we still have yet to receive all of their past light emissions. The only signal towards their disappearance is the dimming of their light as the emissions grow older. The Quiet Rapture is also spoken of within the game's lore terminal. It reads as follows. In 357 EIC, without any prior warning, radio contact with our respective planets was suddenly cut. Nobody can recall having visual contact with any planets when the incident occurred, or experiencing any other unusual phenomena. So, it's uncertain what exactly might have happened. Upon investigation, it was observed independently by several stations that where there had previously been planets, nothing remained. Further investigation over the following months revealed that all known planets with sentient life, flora and fauna, a habitable atmosphere, or any sort of natural resources were likewise gone, along with all known stars. The only celestial bodies that have been found since are either uninhabitable moons or asteroids. Many theories have been proposed for this disaster, including religious interpretations of it as a literal rapture, some unknown quantum anomaly, or something more cosmic and sinister. There are no concrete answers yet. In the movie, we're told of another additional theory that survivors share amongst each other, that states they and all remaining celestial bodies have simply teleported, and the rest of the universe is still well and alive, wondering where the missing moons and ships have gone. Taking another look at the terminal entry, we come across some terms that you might recognize from the movie, many of these terms having their own terminal entries. But rather than read all of them for another 15 minutes, I'll throw up the most important ones so anyone curious can pause and read them. Where there are humans, there are factions. This fact is essential to any story when building a world. In IronLung, we're mainly told about two, which I've already shown the terminal entries for. The COI, which stands for the Consolidation of Iron, and Eden. Throughout the movie, and with help from the terminals, it's obvious that the COI Brotherhood seems to be very grounded in science. In the movie, Simon is held prisoner by the faction, used as a test subject for dangerous exploration of what we can assume to be Moon AT5. Through flashbacks and dialogue, we find out Simon was most likely born into the Eden faction, a far more religious faction than COI. They find purpose in the remaining trees, and their patriotic ties to Mars, reflected in their usage of a Martian calendar. Straying from what the terminals tell us, the movie seems to give us new information on Eden's goal. It would seem Eden, contrary to the COI, believes there is no hope for the remains of humanity, and finds comfort in a new goal, allowing their corpses to become soil for the new world, perhaps a reimagining of the Garden of Eden. We're also left clues to the fact that in this pursuit of rebirth, they see fit the terrorist act of murdering anyone who would not comply, hence the many wars between Eden and the COI. Amongst these wars, one tragedy is brought up time and time again in this movie, a tragedy that Simon was involved in as a member of Eden, whether he agreed with the actions or not. The destruction of the filament station is etched into a terminal that reads as follows. Filament Station was the fourth and largest space station in the COI, until 362 EIC, when tensions between the COI and Eden erupted in a 9-day battle on the station. The conflict battle ended unresolved when Eden troops resorted to sabotaging the station's reactor, resulting in a critical breach. The breach left Filament Station uninhabitable due to high levels of radiation, and it has sat empty since. Prisoners taken during the conflict have been undergoing convict realization in the years since, with the final ones expected to repay their debts and integrate into the COI society by 381 EIC. The aforementioned conviction realization, which also has its own entry, is what we see Simon experience. Thanks to this entry, we can also date the movie to sometime after 362 EIC. Now that we've established much of the world and its people, we can talk about the meat and bones of the movie. Okay, fair warning, we are now entering theory zone. All this is coming straight from my brain after a single watch, so take everything with a decent grain of salt. I'll begin with the most obvious unexplained plot point, the Resin Necklace. Early on in the movie, Simon is led by some shadowy figure, likely a hallucination, to the terminal wire box. After unscrewing the cover off, he's greeted by a note giving instructions on how to rewire the terminal and bypass the lock. Alongside this note, he finds a necklace, holding an amber or resin-trapped seed and leaf. The exact origin of this necklace isn't given, but it's shown to have deep meaning to Simon. A simple explanation would simply be the value of a preserved seed, especially to a previous Eden member like Simon. Judging by the emotions on Simon's face, however, it wouldn't be unfair to assume there's more personal value involved, possibly a previous belonging of his. Why and how it got on this SB-13 model is a much more difficult question. It is at this point I can offer two theories. The first would be far more logical. Shortly after the amber scene, Simon is given access to the terminal, which provides him with current and previous images taken on the SB-13. An audio message of the previous convict plays, detailing how the COI's main intentions with their conviction realization has always been to simply suffocate their prisoners. We can fairly assume that the person who left this message was also the person smart enough to bypass the terminal lock placed by the COI to avoid convicts getting too much power of their execution trip. This would also mean the amber necklace was his, which would align well with the fact that most modern convicts are Eden members caught on the filament station alive. The second, far more convoluted theory is that at some point in Simon's story, time gets scrambled. Not only is time manipulation extremely common in Eldritch horror, but it's even alluded to in the movie, when Simon makes contact with Ava again, and she states that to them it had been 3 days since the last contact. This theory also requires us to remember what led Simon to the wires in the first place, that being a shadowy hallucination. To go even further, we reflect on yet another scene later in the movie. At some point, Simon returns to the cockpit only to find a bizarre, Lovecraftian, humanoid fish creature at his chair. Before the creature can fully turn around and spot him, he rushes to hide behind the wire box, only for the fish creature to have seemingly disappeared, likely to be hallucination as well. At this point, I imagine many of you see where this is going. I believe that fish sitting in the chair was scene 1 past Simon, and the shadowy figure that led Simon to the wires was scene 2 future Simon. As to why Simon sees his past self as a fish, you could say it was a premonition of his future, or you could say it was to protect his brain from something he couldn't understand. Likely a mix of the two is what's correct. This next theory involves the girl Simon hears beyond the speaker. We'll call her the Voice for now. Initially, she's introduced as another possible victim of the conviction realization program. However, once she makes clear she's been in her ship for far longer than the oxygen supply should last, we know something's up. Things further escalate when she tells Simon she found a possible source of the Quiet Rapture, which she describes as a fraction of the light. She also offers Simon a way to survive his certain death, something involving the light she had found. However, she also seems to suggest great consequence, and is reluctant to force Simon into this plan. Clearly, whatever survival this light offers is a twisted one. The mystery reaches its peak when Simon realizes that he had long since broken the wires of the speaker, meaning this voice was reaching him from inside his own mind. Was this a hallucination? Maybe. But that's too easy of an answer. I believe the movie makes clear who this voice is. An earlier scene has Simon discover the ruins of the SM-8, which, the in-game terminals would have us know, is reserved for actual scientists. Some dialogue between Simon and the voice also teaches us that only one submarine has ever made it back to the surface. Combining all this information, along with the fact that the voice initially confuses Simon for Ava, believing her friend had come back to save her, we can make a fair conclusion. At some point, Ava and the voice, two well-acquainted scientists for the COI, went to explore the more recently discovered moon, AT-5. Somewhere on their trip, they stumbled upon a monster, or maybe even the light. The voice's SM-8 got destroyed, and at some point during this, she saw the light with her own eyes, which revealed to her the truth of the rapture. However, her brain was incapable of comprehending it all, and so, to protect her, she was turned into a giant fish beast, much like how Simon sees himself as a humanoid fish beast to protect his brain. Since then, she wanders the blood as this fish beast, remembering only that she forgot something very important about the light. We even see a glimpse of her when she destroys Simon's ship and forces him to see the light, or the few times she peers with her eye through the glass window. Meanwhile, Ava managed to escape with only one of her eyes badly damaged. The continuous symbolism of eyes in this movie seems to be tied to the power of seeing the light, which could also suggest that Ava survived thanks to her damaged eye, keeping her from seeing the light and suffering the voice's fate. This theory would also mean that Ava's personal interest in the SM-8 isn't just for the ship's rarity, nor just for the pictures it might have, but partially because of her hopes and regrets towards this friend, or maybe even sister of hers. Beyond even that connection, it would explain why the voice is so enraged at Simon telling Ava about the SM-8. The voice knows the horrors of the light and wants to protect Ava, but also knows that if Ava found any leads on her whereabouts, she would lead herself to her own demise. This is why she feels forced to destroy Ava's ship, to give her the blessing of a proper death, which then also leads to her anger at Simon for forcing her hand. Finally, we can discuss my theory on the ending. Knowing now what we do about the SM8 logs, and their leads on the location and existence of the light, we can begin to understand the ending. The main surface level conclusion is that despite the voice's attempts to stop him, Simon manages to store the SM8 logs in the life vest he inflates. The final scene shows that the logs are indeed floating on the surface of the blood, waiting to be found by the COI would they happen to see it. Beyond this ending, however, we can find more on the nature of the blood in the Quiet Rapture. In both the game and movies, we're told that the blood is human blood. We're also told by the voice that she partially remembers information from the light. She speaks of a god who is ignorant to the life he has created. By the end of the movie, we're also shown how the blood seems to be alive, trying to assimilate and mutilate Simon, growing into his ship, even raising the oxygen levels back up with a possible breathing cycle like that of a plant. We could even tie the blood's nature back to the symbolism of tumors in this movie, specifically the tumor Simon might have given Ava and the welder Jack with the camera. Using these pieces, I believe I could take a guess on the nature of the Quiet Rapture. I think that the god of this world grew bored, or maybe even disappointed in his creations, and saw fit to destroy it and start anew. In this destruction, he assimilated all of mankind into a single form, a living pool of blood, or maybe even the creatures residing in the blood. The concept of humanity rebinding into a single life form again is far from unheard of in the genre. The Human Instrumentality Project from Evangelion might come to mind. Beyond this, it might also explain a plot point I have yet to touch on. At some point, Simon sees the light and wakes up in an ocean of blood, with the eye of what is likely the god staring back. But when he returns to his ship, it would seem nothing happened. Later, we of course see that time has been warped and that it has been 3 days since his initial departure. But in comparison to the voice, Simon is still mentally sane and seemingly human. In the voice's later rage, we can even hear her confused anger at why Simon was unaffected by the light. Throughout flashbacks and dialogue, we also hear of Simon's past, and his title is the Butcher. Taking an educated guess at what this title means, I believe that Simon's time spent as an Eden member was blood-filled. Again, we discussed how Eden might believe in murdering non-believers so they too become soil. Simon was likely reveled as one of the most efficient murderers in the faction. Combining all this information, I believe that the god saw Simon as a great vessel, and spared his life and mind. God believed Simon could be a vessel to finish off the last of humanity that he initially missed, and bends time to help Simon do so. If this is in fact the case, it would mean that the god might have been successful in his plan, as in the ending, there is indeed a chance the COI finds the SM8 logs, discovers the light, and joins the rest of humanity in the blood. Fuck, that took so long to script. Okay, finally, unscripted speaking, which you can tell because I'm immediately already stuttering a lot more. I already stuttered a lot in the we won't worry about that, let's not worry about that. That's pretty much it, yeah. I think I've stated everything I wanted to. There's a whole lot of micro theories and a lot of cinematography stuff that I'd love to talk about, but I've gotten to a point where I'm just exhausted, honestly. So yeah, I hope you liked the video. This is my first probably like heavily edited scripted video. I have done things like this before, but I've never actually uploaded them, so this is technically the first one. I also hope that enough people see this to maybe discuss more ideas in the comments, because I recognize that a lot of my theories are very biased to my way of seeing it, and I state a lot of it as fact, but obviously it isn't, right? This whole movie is interpretation, this whole genre, the whole Eldritch genre is so interpretive. So I hope more people see this and try to think about things that I couldn't, because I'm very close-minded in the sense. And as any good video ends, I ask you if you'd like to subscribe, or like, or support me in any kind of way. This was fun to make. This was difficult to make, because I usually don't make this kind of stuff, as I said, but very fun to make, and I hope more people see this. Anyway, that's it. Bye.